We are pickling cucumbers today. I have a bumper crop of cucumbers out in my straw bale garden. We tried a really fun technique. They turned out fantastic. Everybody loves them. Did you like them, girls?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what's happening here at the ranch. I'm Susie Felton. This is Mrs. Montana Rancher. I'm a ranch wife, a mom, an educator, and an entrepreneur, and together with my Montana Rancher, we raise cattle, kids, and crops here in Big Sky Country. And in Big Sky Country, I attempt to have a garden. In Zone 4 at 5,000 feet, it's not always pretty and it's not always easy, but we had a little success this year. And because of that, I have cucumbers everywhere. We planted pickling cucumbers. So I haven't canned before. I haven't done any of that. And I watched a Facebook video from my good friend Megan Winfrey. And she has a group called Share the Love. If you want to go over and check her out, she sells oils. If you're into that, she does some fantastic promotions on her group page over on Facebook. And I checked it out. We gave it a try, and the kids love it. The ranch crew even likes it, so I thought I'd share because I have cucumbers, if you can see them back there behind me, coming out my ears. I've got stacks and stacks of cucumbers. So let's get started. We are pickling cucumbers or doing a fermentation process with the saltwater brine. It is good for your gut health. So if you are into gut health, like all of us should be, I guess, I know that I'm always working with anti-inflammatory foods, thinking about gut health. This is one of those things that you can pickle any vegetable. The fermentation process occurs and all of the results are good for your gut. So we have pickles everywhere. We're gonna do that today. So let's get started. I have canning jars. I got the great big wide mouth quart jars. I did not sterilize these except just on my dishwasher hot cycle. I didn't do a hot water bath. I just ran them through the dishwasher on my sterilized cycle, and that's where they're at. You don't have to seal the tops of these. You don't have to sterilize the jars other than a good wash through the dishwasher. So before we get started on that part, let's make the saltwater brine because that is the key. The key to fermentation is a saltwater brine. And pretty much if you get the salt water right, anything you put into the jar is going to work. So I have a half a gallon of water, which is 8 cups. You can make your saltwater brine in different quantities depending on how many jars of whatever it is you're pickling. We're doing cucumbers today, but this will certainly work. We tried green beans or peas last week. We have some carrots that we got. We're going to try all kinds of stuff because these were a hit. So I have a half a gallon of water, that's 8 cups, and we're going to add 6 tablespoons of salt. Now, not your iodinized table salt. This was a little more expensive. This brand is a kosher sea salt, and it says right on there for pickling and more. We are definitely using a high-end salt, not just an iodinized, inexpensive salt. So that's really a key. So make sure when you're shopping for those, you get a really good salt. This one is a kosher sea salt. It's for pickling specifically, and we did that. So hold on, let me do this. Okay, so we're gonna put 6 tablespoons of salt into the half a gallon of water, or 8 cups is a half a gallon. Let's keep track or I'll forget. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now the other day I just had a couple of jars to do, so I cut it in half, and that works too. Now, do you have the lid? He's going to sit the whole time we do the rest and just stir and get this brine going. Now, this water isn't warm, but it isn't cold, or isn't hot, but it isn't cold either. It's more of a lukewarm just to get the salt to dissolve. If I were doing this as a batch thing, not trying to film it, I would have done this first and then got everything set up so it had plenty of time for the salt to dissolve in the water. She's going to sit here and stir it. If you think it's a little bit warm, you can always add some ice cubes to it to cool it off. And that's where we start. Now, anything that is covered with this brine, the salt water and the saltwater brine is going to ferment, and it's also going to keep it fresh and keep it from molding anything that is underneath the saltwater bath, and we'll talk about that a little bit more once we get some things in a jar. So we got a jar. It's a quart size, wide mouth, so we can get in there. Now, the key, the secret sauce to keeping your cucumbers crispy as pickles instead of soggy is, wait a minute, let's talk about it first. is some kind of a leaf, and this is a horseradish leaf. My horseradish has kind of suffered through the summer, so it's not in the best shape, but I still went out and cut it from the garden and washed it really well, so it's ready to go. You can use grape leaves, and the video of Megan's that I watched that was fantastic said you could use oak leaves. You might research oak leaves and make sure the variety that you're using is right for food consumption. I'm not sure. I didn't look into that because I don't have any oak leaves up here in Montana, but we have horseradish. So we're going to take this and we're just going to cut it into some segmented pieces. We're going to put one on the bottom and then we're going to put one on the top when we're all finished. Okay, get that down there. You got it? And what I love about this process too, one of the reasons that I haven't tried to can since I moved to Montana, got married and had kids, is that I was always afraid of the boiling water and the trying to seal a jar in boiling water and all that stuff because my kids like to help, and keeping them away from a giant pot of boiling water for a whole day was just beyond my skill set. So this is great because there's no boiling water, there's none of that involved. And so we put a horseradish leaf on the bottom. We're going to make sure it covers the bottom, and that is the secret sauce. I'm not sure what the chemical reaction is that keeps your cucumbers crisp when they become pickles, but that is a key. Then we're going to put in 3 garlic cloves. Now I sat and already peeled all this garlic beforehand, so you didn't have to watch me do it. You're going to put 3 in there. Great. So really, if you're doing a vegetable pickling other than a cucumber, all you really need is the saltwater bath. Any spice that you put in is strictly up to you. It's going to work. For the cucumbers to become pickles, the leaf that I put in, the horseradish leaf, is going to keep them crispy, which is awesome, on the outside instead of soggy. Everything else that we're adding is really to your taste. So you can do, we're doing dill pickles today, by the way, but you could do other variations of this. The other day I was out of dill, and so I just, I actually cut a jalapeno into the bottom of it, added some cucumbers, a saltwater brine, and some pickling spices, and that was it, and called it a day. So this I don't know if you guys have ever bought fresh dill. And I left it this way just to show you. We are fortunate enough to have a grocery store close to us that actually sells these. Hold on. And had I been doing this without trying to show you what it looked like, I would have cut all of we call these a head, or what is it? John, you tell me it's a umber inflorescence. Is that get my science right there with that shape? So those are the dill. But you can also use all of the little fronds here at the bottom, and so we're going to cut some of that off of here. I would have cut it in advance had I not been showing you how the great big dill sprig. And really, you can't get this wrong. You just put a bunch in. I love this because there is no wrong way to do it. If the kids can make their own concoction. So far I have a horseradish leaf, 3 cloves of peeled garlic, and some dill. And then I want to show you guys this. You need a pickling spice. That's what I used. This one is from Fisher Spice out of Bozeman, Montana. And it is at our local grocery store. But you can buy any kind of pickling spice that you want to. This one, I have one open already. This one also is full of red peppers. And I try to make sure I don't get too many of those into the pickles with the kids. Or I do a few sets. I got one open, Quinn. That will make the pickles too spicy. I mark spicy on them when I do that. You can also add just red pepper flakes if you want to add, or a jalapeno. There's a bay leaf. Go ahead. You're gonna just put one. You're gonna put a red pepper in there. Okay, that's good. And then we need, down at the bottom where all the spices are mixed up, we're gonna do a tablespoon of that. So I'm gonna put a tablespoon of the pickling spices. Maybe I should have measured this in advance because it's not really easy to get out of there. You gonna put it in there? Yeah. Okay, be careful. Good job. It kind of got in the brine. That's okay because it's all going together.
I'll get it.
It's okay. Just leave it alone. Don't stick your hand in there. We did get our hands washed before we started doing this. Okay, so far we have a horseradish leaf, some garlic cloves, some dill, and a tablespoon of pickling spice. So really now all we have to do is add the pickles. And I haven't cut these yet. Now when we started out, the tutorial that I watched, they used all these pretty little baby pickles like this, and they just put the whole pickle in. But that would require me to keep ahead of my cucumber plants, which, you know what, it just doesn't happen that way. Stop. And so what I found is I had these great big pickles, or cucumbers, that I didn't think the kids would eat ginormous pickle once it was in the jar. So I cut them into spears, and that is the jars they've been choosing. The kids and my husband seem to like the spears better. So after that first round, we cut them into spears. And so I'm just gonna slice. I don't know if you guys can see down below me here. It's sometimes hard to get everything on camera. I'm gonna slice these cucumbers into spears. And as I do that, them in the jar. I'm gonna start putting them in the jar while I slice them. There you go. Concentration. Try to get them in there, and we really pack them in there. Now, when I'm doing this on my own, I try to get them as many cucumber spears as I can into the jar. That's good. So, and then I'll kind of move them around and just start putting more in there. Here, hold on, good job. Watch out, I have a knife here. Can you put some more in there while I cut some more? I gotta cut enough for this jar. Can you stick them in there? Okay, so the kids like to do this, and they like to help, which is awesome. My kids are very into helping us, and I try to let them as much as I can, because someday they'll get to do this and I'll just get to watch. So, and also it helps that we've done a set of these, we tried them, we liked them, the kids liked them. We even did some garden peas and really liking those. So I like to get this, let me help you because I want to get a lot in there, okay? So I'm going to put as many in here as I can and get this whole jar stuffed. Okay, can you put some more in? Can you get them in? We're going to do that next. Fine. Okay, can we get, and I try to cram these in. Now, one thing I learned from my first set of pickles was that some of my bigger cucumbers, when they were really tall, they came way up high in the jar, and it was hard to keep them covered in the brine. So I actually, the next time I did it, I trimmed them down so they weren't so tall. And then I just took the trim and I sliced them into circles, and then just made one jar at the end of just some sliced up pickles. So they were in just circles. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, watch this in. Just stop. Okay, so now let's take a look at this. I want to get it close so you can see it. So we have a jar. We have a horseradish leaf in the bottom, some seasoning, some dill, some garlic, and some pickle spears all in there. They're pretty jammed in there. So that's all we need for that. And now it's time for the brine. Now the secret sauce to these, anything that is under the brine will ferment. Anything above the brine can mold. And that's not good. So you really want to make sure that you have everything in there covered in the brine. And the last step is to put another horseradish leaf on top. Let's move the brine out of the way for our next set. It's okay. So, okay, push it in there. Salty. Okay, don't taste the brine. Okay, so here we go. And then we're just gonna put the girls, and then we'll put the lid on. And then we'll talk about it a little bit more. So that jar is ready to ferment. And I like the horseradish leaf because it helps hold everything under the brine, and that is so important because you don't want things to mold. And anything under that brine will not mold. So then I put the lids on. Now, you have to burp these every day. It takes 7 to 10 days for these to become a pickle, and you have to burp them. And you definitely want to do that because you don't want your jars exploding in your kitchen from the fermentation process and all the carbon dioxide that's released as a part of it. So every day, I usually did them twice a day when we first started because they were building up quite a bit of pressure. I would just come in, pull the top off, and then screw it back on. And I put the date on there so I knew. When it got about 7 days, they stopped fermenting, and so they stopped needing to be burped. They go in the fridge, and so then they basically live in the refrigerator until you eat them. They become a refrigerator pickle once you've gone through the fermentation process in 7 to 10 days. That's all there is to the fermentation process. You can do the same method with carrots, with really anything. Sauerkraut, this is how you make fermented sauerkraut. You don't have to add the leaf if you aren't worrying about a cucumber staying crunchy as a pickle. But the only thing I found when I did the peas, the only thing I found when I did the peas was that they wouldn't stay under the brine, and I actually used that leaf to keep them under the brine, and that was that helped everything stay below because they kept floating to the top, and anything at the top can mold. So you don't want that to happen. So this is what they look like when they're done. The water gets a little bit cloudy, so don't let that scare you, as long as there's no mold on the top and everything is under the brine. One weird thing happened though, and I had to look it up because I was like, what is going on? We have hard water here at the ranch in Montana, and when you put these garlic cloves in and they spend all this time fermenting, when you have hard water, a chemical reaction takes place with certain minerals that are in your water, and they turn like a aqua green turquoise color. I'll see if you can see one of them, and I thought it was molding. Do you see? Can you kind of see it down there at the bottom? It's like turquoise, and I kept going, gosh, these are molding. So I researched it, I read up on it. Everything under the brine is safe, it won't mold. That is a chemical reaction that happens when you have hard water. It's not mold. So that, I was like, huh, because I thought I ruined them all. But any mold that occurs would be on top. And you use, you know, if you open it up and they smell bad, you know, you always err on the side of caution when you're doing this, and don't consume something that you don't think is safe. These are a hit. They go in the refrigerator after 7 to 10 days when the fermentation process is done, where they stay. You don't get to put them on the shelf in the pantry. Once they're fermented, they have to live in the refrigerator. Thanks for joining us here on Mrs. Montana Rancher. We made pickles today out of our bumper crop of Strawbell Garden cucumbers. So we're pickling. It's good for gut health, which I know a lot of us are concerned about. So I'm Susie Felton. This is Mrs. Montana Rancher. Thanks for joining us.